Hey everyone, Duke Nougat 3D here with a video as promised of my Chinese People's Liberation Army Type 64B gas mask. I had just recently picked this up. Big thanks to Hype on the r/gas masks official Discord, and I had actually bought it through the gas masks trading and selling group on Facebook. However, I talked to him more on the subreddit Discord, and he's a really cool dude. I'm definitely buying more stuff off of him in the future, but for now I'm very happy with this, and I'm super excited to do a review on it because I've been focusing a lot on US masks lately, and I don't exactly get a lot of foreign masks unless they're particularly interesting to me, and this one has actually been on my bucket list for a while. However, I've not actually found any that have the early type of carrier, and now I did, so I'm going to go over that today. So, a little bit of background history. When China basically finished up its cultural revolution, it became the Chinese Civil War ended. China became Red China, and then the Kuomintang government went to Taiwan. The main masks that China was using at the time, throughout the 50s, were either Soviet SHM-41 masks from the Second World War or Japanese Type 99 masks that they had captured, and those were soon running out, and they needed to design their own domestic gas mask design. So once they had got their industry all set up, their first domestic design, I believe, was the Type 64 series. The first model, known as the Type 64A, was very similar to what you see here. However, the main differences being that the buckles were molded into the rubber, and then also the combined diaphragm and outlet assembly was made out of a translucent white, like semi-white plastic that had a separate plastic voice diaphragm on the center, and then a Soviet-style double outlet valve at the bottom there. I'm sure you've seen them before. And then later on, because these masks were introduced in 1964, as the name would imply. Later on in the 70s, I believe, it was upgraded as a Type 64B, which you see here. And the main differences between the two are obviously the Type 64B uses a different buckle system where it's sort of based on the Czechoslovakian system of having a rubber tab that the buckle basically slips through. And then the diaphragm angle tube assembly here was also changed to the circular type, which is very, very prominent on a majority of Chinese-made designs, and as far as I know, is still being used today on the FMJ08 mask, which you may recognize as their clone of the Avon S10. However, they are coming out with a new mask, the FMJ09, which Moulage hopes to be acquiring one off of the same person, so I guess look out for that with his channel. But anyways, that point is this combined voice diaphragm outlet design is very, very common in Chinese gas mask designs. It was recycled a lot. And other than that, it's basically no other differences. And as far as I know, the Type 64 series is still in use today in China. However, it is only used as a training mask. As far as I know, it may be recycled for special purpose, but as far as I know, just for training. And unfortunately, getting these masks in original People's Liberation Army configuration is getting rare because there are a lot of bootleg Chinese companies that will take these surplus masks, they will remove the hoses, and then they will jam a set of 40mm threads in the hose port, and they will resell it as a painting and dust respirator. And those are the ones you'll see all over eBay. They're very common, and they cost a hell of a lot cheaper than this did, I'll tell you that. It's actually very hard to find these, and I paid around like $48 total for this, so not the best price, but I'm happy with it. This is a mask I've wanted for a while, so be it. So that being said, there really isn't too much else to discuss on the history of this. They're pretty benign, and they're kind of a one other thing to note, these were commonly referred to as the MF4, and I can tell you that is an incorrect designation. The actual designation is Type 64B, at least for this model. The Type 64A is the one with the earlier type with the translucent plastic diaphragm angle tube assembly and the molded-in rubber harness buckles. So, with all that established, let's get onto the contents of the kit itself. Firstly, with this carrier here, this is probably one of the main reasons I bought this kit, is because of this carrier. It is the early type of carrier, which uses the Bakelite studs and rubber disc fastener assemblies, which is rare in and of itself. Most of the ones, if you do find a PLA Type 64 gas mask for sale, which you will still, but they're just getting rarer, if you do find one for sale, they're more than likely going to be ones with the Velcro carriers. They'll have 2 patches of Velcro on the back, and the carrier will look boring, and it's just an odd aesthetic having Velcro on a canvas carrier bag. Speaking of the canvas, it is very durable. It is actually more durable than the Soviet carriers, so it's a very high quality carrier. You have a waist strap on the back, which is the least quality part of this carrier. It's very thin canvas webbing, cotton webbing. The clip is nice, so I'm very fond of this clip, how it's spring-loaded and not just a tensioned piece of wire like the American gas mask carrier clips use. So that just comes right off super easily. And then the D-ring is also elasticated, which is interesting. I'm not sure why they did that exactly. On the bottom of the carrier, you have the 7 grommets for the filter inlet for the air to pass through. They're not the cleanest job on installation. They're basically smashed in with a hammer, but you know, it is what it is. And then opening the studs, and as you can see, it doesn't look like rubber, but it's a very thin sheet of rubber that has a fabric backing to it, and that is what seals the 2 grommets. And then the most durable part of this carrier is the shoulder strap. I think the rest of the carrier will break before this thing does, because it is a beefy, thick, very stiff canvas. I do not see this breaking or tearing or fraying anytime soon, so this will outlive the carrier, definitely. There is an absence of markings for the most part on the carrier. You can see, the first thing you'll see is this pouch on the back here for the anti-fog inserts and spare voice membrane. You will have you can notice the fabric patches that retain the Bakelite studs in place. And then you also have this filter pouch here, which is probably the weirdest part of the carrier, and I'll get to why that is in a moment. Before I do, though, I'd like to mention the one marking I found on this carrier, which seems to be an inspection stamp. I'm not entirely sure. I'm sorry if you can't read that very well. My camera is casting a shadow, but yeah, if anyone could read Chinese, let me know what that is if you can. I'm fairly certain that's an inspection stamp, but I'm not entirely sure. So the filter would be housed in this little very thin cotton pouch here, which does have a little bit of elastic around the top there to secure it in place, and then it has a gauze mesh at the bottom so that the air can pass through easier. And then you can also see the little eyelets, the grommets there at the bottom, which, as you can see, are very poorly installed. They're just smashed in, basically. And then the weirdest part about this is that the filter doesn't sit all the way inside this pouch. As you can see, there's some stitching right here, and I don't know if the camera's picking that up. If you could sort of see inside, there's sort of a fabric net inside there that retains the bottom of the canister, which leaves a considerable gap of dead space between the bottom of the canister and the bottom of the carrier. So I'm not entirely sure what this little gap in here is for. If anyone can clue me in on why that's there, please let me know. I'm not entirely sure myself, but it is what it is. And again, very happy with this carrier. These are very hard to find, and very pleased to own one. Moving on, let's get on to the spare voice membrane. It comes with one, and it comes packaged in this cardboard manila envelope type stuff, and it's stitched closed, and when you need it, you just tear it open and you have a fresh new voice membrane. You have the anti-fog inserts, which I'm not going to open, and they seem pretty competent. They even bothered to paint the tins, which the Soviets never did. Now onto the filter, which is the only part of this kit which is not original. This is a modern Chinese ZAP33 aerosol and natural vapor canister, which incidentally enough is dated October 24th, 2018. So this is, as far as I know, still usable and can actually protect me against its intended hazards. But it's very interesting that China is still making coffee can filters and, you know, with modern filtering materials for modern hazards. But the original military canisters would be olive drab green in color. They'd have a bare minimum of, they wouldn't have any labels. They'd have some numbers on them maybe. And that's about it. And you can see the plug at the bottom with a very piss poor cording material. I'm not even sure what this material is. It's not string. It feels more like paper or something. It's like a really shitty Cordura polyester type of thread. I don't know what it is, but anyways. Also interesting is that the little eyelet for the plug string to be retained on is just riveted onto the bottom there. It's neat. Then the filter cap is plastic. It's like a Gatorade bottle almost. It's very amusing. But I'm not going to open that. I'm going to leave it sealed just in case, but whatever. And then also the bag that the filter came in, which has a lot of stuff I can't read because it's in Chinese. So, and then you have like a nice image of an MF1 mask, which most people call it TF1, but the actual designation is MF1 on the front of the bag. Nothing really much to see other than that. And now on to the mask itself finally, which I am actually very, very impressed with this mask. So it's actually, it feels like it was molded to actually fit a human face. Like, it's not just a cranial condom like the Soviet masks are, where it's a big rubber bag. This mask takes a lot of influence from Japanese and Soviet designs. There's a lot of Sovietness to it, but a lot of the configuration is very reminiscent of certain Japanese masks, but I'm not going to get into the details of that. You have the two Soviet-style eyepieces, which are nothing to gawk at. They're fairly basic. The main thing about them, though, is that the anti-fogging insert retainers, which I've noted are a pain in the ass to remove, so much so that I actually have a video instructing on how to remove those. You don't need to do any of that with this. You could just pull them out by hand, easy as that. You don't need any tools, don't need to break your thumbs or tear your skin. It just comes right out. It's amazing. I'm very impressed with that. Interesting is that it is a 5-point mask, but it is much more comfortable than the average 5-point mask, because as you notice, the face blank has an extended portion of the rubber which goes over the top of your head and centers the buckle on the very top of your head, so that when you are wearing a helmet, the sweatband will not integrate, or it will not interfere with the seal of your mask. Because on most gas masks, the buckles would be right around here, and a helmet sweatband would sort of collide with that and, you know, interrupt a seal or just make things very uncomfortable. Whereas having it up here, definitely much more comfortable and much better seal. The voice emitter outlet assembly, just the cover as I've shown before, just unscrews. You have this rubber disc, or this rubber ring, which is the secondary outlet. The diaphragm assembly is made out of a green rubber, which is interesting. You don't really see too many masks with diaphragms made out of rubber, but Chinese did it apparently. And then removing this, you can see the first outlet valve, which is also the diaphragm retainer. Pulling this entire assembly off would allow you to remove the diaphragm to replace it. But yeah, it's how it works is you got this bare ridge of plastic that this rubber ring or disc sits up against, and as you exhale, this forces this down and allows the air to pass through out these slits and out the valve. It's very reminiscent of outlet valve diaphragm assemblies that the Wilson safety company has designed. I'm not going to get into that though. And then obviously the mask looks very amusing without a diaphragm assembly in place. I can just imagine myself wearing this thing, removing the diaphragm, and taking a sip out of a Capri Sun pouch with this thing. But memes aside, it's a very competent system. You know, and there's a reason the Chinese have used it for decades. And despite what people say, this actually sounds fairly clear for what it is. It's not the clearest voice diaphragm, but for what it is, it's nice. You may notice that all the wire and tape is covered up by rubber bands so as to protect the hardware, the wire underneath from rusting. Very nice. The hose is fairly competent, just a stockinette covered typical gray Soviet style hose with another rubber band over the wire and tape on this end. And I should note, I have tried it. This Chinese thread on this is not normalized. It is not, standardized or transition or whatever you want to call it. I've tried both an American C2A1 and a British PS10 filter on this. I could not get it to thread in all the way. It is, it's not compatible with NATO. At least this is. I might try and pick up one of those modern Chinese hoses and try it again, but as far as this mask is concerned, this is entirely GOST all the way. It does not fit any NATO threads, unfortunately. Moving back to the head harness, you can see it is a very basic 5-point harness with a blue fake leather head pad, which is canvas on the other side, interestingly enough. And the more intriguing part about this harness is actually the lower straps, which have two buckles. You have a buckle to adjust this way and then a buckle to adjust downwards that way. I'm not entirely sure why they did this, and it doesn't really seem necessary to do, but they did it, so why not, I guess. And other than that, there is no markings on the exterior of the mask other than a size stamp on the lower right bottom harness tab, which is a size 2, and I don't know if I mentioned already, but a size 2 Chinese mask fits very similarly to a Russian size 3. And with that being said, before my camera runs out of memory, I will take this off the head and invert the harness and show off the interior, because there's some nice features in here as well. So, looking inside the mask, you can see the mold quality. It seems very dilapidated and very poorly molded, but that is mostly just due to the mask being crushed in storage for several decades, so it's a very competent mask, assure you not. Also, the rubber feels flimsy, but it is very durable. Like, if you felt a Soviet mask, like a GP5, this will feel infinitely softer than a GP5. It is very soft, very flexible, very smooth rubber. And it is a bit, tacky, like, comm block rubber tends to be, but once you once I've put silicone on it, it's very smooth. And this thing was filthy when I originally got it. It was just stained all over, talcum and bloom and God knows what covering this thing, and a little bit of water, soap, acetone, and a treatment with silicone, and this thing is spotless now, and I'm very happy how it cleaned up. Looking inside, you can see the eyepieces, nothing to see there. You can see the diaphragm and the outlet valve assembly throughout the bottom there. You can see the subtle molding of the TSO deflectors and the chin piece, which is very smooth and comfortable. This is a very, very comfortable communist-made mask. And then the most interesting feature is around the temples. You can see, you might have noticed that there are these little pouches in here, and what these are molded cushions to seal against the temples, like the little divots of your temples, so that the mask has a perfect seal. And in fact, it does. This is a very comfortable feature, and I absolutely love the hell out of it. I could not be more impressed with this mask for what it is. And the only marking inside that I've noticed, actually there is a little marking right here, but I can't, there's a number 11 right there, not sure what that is, probably a serial code, or a lot number. And then here on the camera, we'll probably not pick this up because it is very faded. Mine is dated, that says 80 right there, and that's probably a 1, so I can defer that this mask was made in January of 1980. And then there's a number 5 there, which might be a batch number or something else. Really, that's all there is to see about this mask. Again, very impressed with it. If you're looking... I've gotten a few comments requesting GOST threaded masks, you know, because they live in countries where NATO canisters are not available, and they want a decent Soviet-style mask to use. I don't know if you can get your hands on these. I'm sure you can, because China basically will sell their shit to anyone. But, yeah, these are very competent masks. I absolutely love them. I'm really a fan of Chinese masks now, but like it's not going to be my main focus, but I'm going to still focus on U.S. stuff. But honestly... I wouldn't mind getting more Chinese stuff in my collection. I hope I could do more deals with this guy soon. So, that being said, I'm Duke Nuga 30. If you have any comments, questions, corrections, or concerns, drop them down in the comments below, and I'll see you all later.